Racecourse is the most beautiful racetrack in America, hands down.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to the breeding stock sale. Book one. Good to have you back with us.
Welcome in, everybody, to the Keeneland Look Ahead. I'm Jeremy Plonk from Horse Player Now. This is your Saturday Night Live version, if you will, but you don't have to wait up till 11:30 for this one. 8:30 Eastern, each night before the next day's racing, we take a look at the full card to come. And on Sunday, we've got a special day for you because it's Spinster Sunday. For me, it's Keeneland's most traditional race. When I think of Keeneland, I think of the Spinster Stakes in the fall. What a tremendous impact it's had on the Breeders' Cup distaff over the decades, going back to the original distaff in 1984 and all the way through the years. So we've got a fantastic renewal coming up on Sunday. It'll be the featured race number 9 on a 10-race card. Keeneland Turf Pick 3 is going to be races 6, 8, and 10 on Sunday. 2 of those are stakes races. So we have the Indian Summer in race number 6, and then we're going to have the Bourbon Stakes in race number 8. Spinster follows in race 9, and then we've got a Turf Marathon allowance to wrap things up in that Keeneland Turf Pick 3. We'll recap what happened on today's card. We'll also get a check-in from Tom Leach earlier this week. He talked to Phil Bauer. He's got one of the fillies. We're going to try to upset the favorites in the Spinster Stakes, so we'll get a little action there as well. We'll go back and look at the last matchup when we saw Malathot against Latruska. That was at Saratoga in the personal ensign. We'll go back and look at the replay of that race as well when we get further along into the program. Over the next 30, 40 minutes, get your past performances out. If you don't have them, just listen along and we'll take you through the card. Not only my thoughts, but also the public handicappers at Keeneland.com as we bring in our full card consensus grid picks from Keeneland.com directly off the website here. So if you want to go check it out for yourself, there's a printable version of this. I put out the picks each night on this Look Ahead podcast so you can see where the races are, where we're in a lot of agreement, and the races where we have no agreement, because it's going to tell you where there's probably going to be heavy favorites and races that are going to be wide open in the wagering. So we will look at all these races in detail in just a moment. I also want to introduce you to the big picture. This is something we do exclusively here on the Keeneland Look Ahead. We set up all the major wagers throughout the course of this 10-race card that we'll have on Sunday. For instance, race number 1 starts to pick 5. Race number 2 starts to pick 4. Pick 6 will start in race number 5. We've got stakes races in 6, 8, and 9, as I told you earlier. The late pick 5 is going to start in the 6th. The Keeneland Turf pick 3s in green, so you see those races there. And then the late pick 4 will start with race number 7. We put these out there and we try to line it up because what you want to do as a handicapper is match your opinions to the betting menu and try to maximize your value. If you've got a horse you really love, you want to try to hit them 7 ways to Sunday, as I like to say. And since it is Sunday, let's try to hit one 7 ways. Each horse that you really have a strong opinion on, you want to try to match up your wagers to that horse. So not only do I hit the winner, say at 5-1, I might hit the rolling double. I might key this horse to get into the pick 4 and reduce the ticket of my reduce the cost of my ticket because I'm only using one horse. I really love a particular horse. They become your single, if you will, in a pick 4 or pick 5. Maybe you've got back-to-back horses, or horses are only a race apart that you think are your 2 best bets on the card. How do you maximize playing across the sequences? That's what we're here to do and try to uncover. Also, with the big picture, I'd like to give you my 3 plays of the day. Look, I'm a bullish proponent that not every card has 10 good bets on it, even though there are 10 races. The marketing people won't like me telling you that. I still want you to bet your same amount of money that you would, but I want you to bet it smartly. If it's a 10-race card, you shouldn't be making $10 bets if you have a $100 bankroll. Find the ones you really like, play those stronger, still spend your $100. Maybe you play every race, but you nickel dime 7 of the races and you really go after 3 of them. That's my best advice, and that's how I'll attack the Sunday card. I've got 2 long shot plays in races 3 and 5. But I can tell you this, early in the day, I think there's a lot of favorites. The 1st, 2nd, and 4th, I think are going to be very chalky. So in the early part of the day, if I'm going to make any money, I've got 2 long shots that I like. They're in races 3 and 5. We'll talk about them as we get to those particular races. Then we get through the stakes races, and I think the stakes races are going to be rather formful. You've got the Indian Summer, the Bourbon, and the Spinster in 6, 8, and 9. I don't see any wild prices in those races. So late in the day, the race I really want to hone in on for me personally is race number 10, where I've got a couple pedigree plays that I think are going to go off at nice prices. And if I'm going to have a good back half of the card, it's going to be because of race 10, the anchor. I love the stakes races. They're great to preview. They're great to talk about. Sometimes they're fantastic betting races, but a good betting race comes in many shapes and forms. And for me today, the best betting race is going to be the 10th on the card, that Turf Marathon allowance race. And then again, we've got a couple prices in races 3 and 5. If we can get them home, we could have ourselves a nice Sunday. Let's go to the handicapper selectors grid. And we talked about how I thought it could be formful early in the program. Guana K is a straight up pick all the way across with the public handicappers. All 5 of us are on the same horse. This will be an about face from what we saw today on the Saturday card because favorites were blanked in the first 5 races today. The early pick 5 paid $23,000 on the Saturday card. I don't think we're going to look at a $23,000 pick 5 in the early pick 5 on Sunday. But again, I do have 2 long shot plays that could pop in there. So if I'm right on both of my horses, maybe I can get you at least halfway to that 23,000. But Guana K is going to be a solid favorite in this, and it's a starter allowance race to kick things off in race number 1. Guana K is a horse who goes from a mile at Churchill to a mile and a 16th here while taking a big class drop. Has been running in allowance races, now in the starter allowance ranks for a high percentage trainer, Cipriano Contreras. I like the horses going from a mile at Churchill to a mile and a 16th at Keeneland. 2 reasons for that. At Churchill, a mile is around 1 turn, so they tend to play the horses who are a little bit faster and have some more natural foot about them than a 2-turn mile would. Now, when you get to Keeneland, it's a mile and a 16th. It is around 2 turns, but we use the 16th pole finish line at Keeneland, so they don't have the long stretch run. Turn from home and just get to the wire. So these horses coming from the 1-turn mile at Churchill historically have run very well, going a mile and a 16th at Keeneland. We get that situation with Guana K here in race number 1. But again, you could apply that to any race day at Keeneland, any particular race. Look for that handicapping angle. 1-turn mile horses at Churchill who do well. How do they come? And when they run the Keeneland around the 2-turn mile and a 16th, historically the numbers say they do quite well. So I'm going to take my shot in there. I don't think we've got a big price. Not a lot to go on in race number 1 in terms of getting odds. Guana K is going to be bet. Judy's Way might give us a little bit of a price on the underneath side. You see the other public handicappers. Not a lot of love for Judy's Way in there. Judy's Way is another one coming out of a race at Churchill, 7/8 of a mile last time. Kind of a closing sprinter. We'll see how the 2 turns fared. Ran well around 2 turns at Indiana Grand. Back a ways, Horseshoe Indianapolis now with the rename. But we'll see. Judy's Way's got a lot of seconds and thirds. You look at that running line for Judy's Way, 34 starts, 2 wins, 11 seconds, 7 thirds, 18 second and third place finishes, 18 slices, as my buddy Brian Natto at Gulfstream Park now likes to say. 18 times second or third without the big win. Likes to get a lot of the little slices, but maybe Judy's Way will be slotted in there again. 5-4 exacta perhaps to start things off in race number 1. Back to the big board we take you because we know race 1's going to start the pick 5. We've got a heavy favorite in Guana K in there. So if Guana K is going to win this race at a short price, there's not going to be a big difference between the pick 4 and the pick 5. If you think you've got an easy winner in race number 1, you're in a single, it's going to cost you the same amount of money to bet the pick 5 as it would no matter what you played in the pick 4, because you're only going to multiply by a factor of 1 in that first race. So this is a good day to play the pick 5 over the pick 4. If you like Guana K in race number 1 as a favorite, just go ahead and take that because the pick 5s pay much better than the pick 4s, regardless of how big of a favorite would happen to win the first race. It's still going to pay much better than the pick 4 will. If you don't feel there's much risk in that, go for the pick 5 and you'll be better off in the long run playing that kind of wager. If, Guana K gets beat in race number 1, then of course, you can always wheel back and come back and play the pick 4 again if you'd like. But I would take the favorite in the pick 5 in this kind of situation in race number 1 and not play the early pick 4. I can always go back and play that early pick 4, like I said, if things don't work out the way that we want in the opener. As for picks in race number 2, for me, it's Hit Show, same pick as Tom Leach. Most Saturdays is the top pick by other public handicappers. Race number 2 is a 7 furlong maiden special weight. These races have been in fall meets really a haven for horses from Churchill Downs and the first-time starters. They seem to have the most luck in here. Most Saturdays comes from Saratoga. The Saratoga horses don't do as well in these races as you would suspect. So look for the first-time starters in here or the Churchill horses. Garuvan from Churchill is an interesting horse. He's by his sire Gervin. Gervin, when he was a 3-year-old, got pretty good, won the Louisiana Derby. But, man, has he gotten off to a fast start. Damon's Mound, some other nice stakes winners in his first crop of 2-year-olds. So I wouldn't be surprised if number 8, Garuvan's not too bad here in the second career start. Has a race under the belt now. Edwin Morales, certainly a big meet. Edgar Morales, big meet at Churchill Downs most recently. So he's riding well. I would expect him to do well. But it's hit show for me. The Brad Cox first-time starter. Florent Giroux rides here. He's by Candy Ride. Candy Ride was for a long time the top sire on the Keeneland dirt here. His horses in the early years, he's getting up in age. I mean, Candy Ride now, it's past, but his horses and his older crops are getting up in age. But his horses had a lot of success on the dirt here at Keeneland in the early days of the transition back fall 2014 and on. For a long time, he was the top sire on the Keeneland dirt. So Hit Show's bred to run well here. He's out of a mare named Actress. The Dam won the Black-Eyed Susan Stakes, the fillies version of the Preakness. So she was a very good mare. I like Hit Show in here. And I will use Garuvan as one that you want to keep an eye on as well. As for spoilers, Steve Asmussen's got one working really well. If you're playing the pick 4s, pick 5s, I think you use the top 3 in here. I'll go against most Saturdays. I'm going to take a shot against the Turf to Dirt mover from Saratoga for Al Stahl. Al Stahl has got off to a nice start here at the meet, but I'll go 3 deep in here. I'll use the 7, the 8, and the 1. In race number 2 for pick 5 purposes. And if you're starting a pick 4 in here, I'll start going 3 deep. See how the public bets this one. I'm interested to see the Brad Cox first-time starter, or will they go for the Saratoga runner-up most Saturdays? Either the 2 or the 7, I'm sure. Will go favorite. And this is one of the reasons why we show you the handicapper selectors box, because when you look across, you see a whole lot of 5s and 7s there, and that's how the public's likely to bet this or a lot of, I should say, 2s and 7s, and how they're likely to bet the second race. Third race on the card is one of my key plays early in the day as we take you back to the big picture and what to look at. I've got a long shot chance in here, 15-1 in the morning line. If we get the favorite in the first leg, we get some logical horses in the second. We're going to need some prices in here at some point early in the day. And I've got one on the outside, Eyes of Glory. Eyes of Glory is a horse, the 7 in here in a 7-horse field. This is a race for 30,000 non-winners and 2 lifetime claimers. The profile for these kind of races at 6.5 furlongs is you want to get a horse with some speed. The average winner is just a nose off the lead in the races we've seen at 6.5 for this class level in fall meets in the past. A nose off the lead basically means you're on the lead. And that's a very front profile. Most speedy kind of profiles that we see, the average winner is about a length and a half off the lead. So when they're actually on the lead, a nose off the lead as the average position, a half mile into the race, that really is a far forward profile for speed. So I'm looking for a horse that I think can get towards the front in here. Now, most of the horses who have done well in these 6.5 furlong races for the cheaper non-winners of 2, like we have here, have been adding distance. So I'm looking for a horse who ran shorter than 6.5 last time, and I think can get towards the front. If you look at this race, there is no speed in here, hardly at all. The 3 Wesleyans, probably the speed from Prairie Meadows in Iowa, but I think the 7 Eyes of Glory can break first or second in here with the addition of blinkers. Now, this is kind of a no-name barn, only 2 wins on the year. Farron Peterson, the jock coming in, had a good mid-Atlantic run in the saddle, be new to the Kentucky circuit. But I think you're looking at a position here where Eyes of Glory is going to break with the blinkers on, drops out of the allowance ranks at Belterra. And if this horse can match up over the track at Keeneland against this level of competition and get near the front, I think Eyes of Glory can take him a pretty long way here. This is a flat-out gelding who, you know, over the years, flat out's been pretty good with the sprinters here at Keeneland on the main tracks. Had some high-profile sprinters do well. But Eyes of Glory is a long shot look. Is this a single by any stretch? No, it's not a single for sure. This is a spread race. I mean, there's 7 horses in race number 3, and there's not a lot to like kind of hug and embrace in the third race. Carbonite is the pick by everybody else. If that's where you go with your single, you know, Carbonite coming off the 3rd place finish at Churchill, They put blinkers on there. Maybe that's the logical horse, and maybe I'm getting a little cute trying to get Eyes of Glory as the horse who's coming from Belterra. Carbonite would be the other logical horse in here. Maybe get by just too deep. I mean, Ollie Meister's not bad on the class drop. I just think you got a lot of question marks in this race. So I'm going to take a chance. I know Eyes of Glory is going to be a big price. People are not going to respect the Belterra form. But if you saw opening day, we saw 2 horses from FanDuel Racing and East St. Louis, Illinois win. So the right horse in the right matchup can get it done. Carbonite's going to be favored in here. Ollie Meister's going to get bet. I know I'm going to get a price, so I'll take my chance with Eyes of Glory. But if you're playing the pick 4s, pick 5s, for me, this is a race you want to spread out in. But certainly, intra-race, get a good bet, win, maybe an exacta underneath with the 7-horse running second in there. The long shot play in race number 3, that being Eyes of Glory. To the 4th we go, and I'm tied on with Center Isle in race number 4, as is Tom Leach, as is Scott Hazelton. Center Isle, the second pick for Kim Nelson and Gabby Gaudet. We all like this Center Isle mare because she's run well here at Keeneland in the past. She had a big win here back in October of 2021, almost a year ago this week. It was Center Isle coming off a long layoff and running through the wind, ran a big race, drawing off and winning easily for Paulo Lobo. She's by Into Mischiefs. The Into Mischiefs are the top producing sire on the main track here at Keeneland. So there's a pedigree affinity, obviously, for Center Isle. And then when she just stamped it with a big win here last year, I think she's the one who's going to run a big race. She'll boom off the layoff here if she runs like she did last year. Paulo Lobo's horses are running pretty darn good so far at the meet. He's had a couple good second-place finishes. He just had the second-place finisher in the $1 million stakes race on Saturday on the turf, the Coolmore Turf Mile. He was runner-up in there. We'll see. Paulo should have Center Isle ready to go. Speed jockey Gerardo Corrales takes the mount. They're from the 2-hole. I think they just send and go in there. Sarah Harper's got some front-running speed as well for Ron Moquette. She's probably the horse to complete the exact, and that's the way I'll send him in. 2-5 for me. Kim Nelson's got the 5 on top. Gabby Gaudet's got the 4 Current Climate as her top choice in there. She's going to get a price there. This horse is coming off a dull finish at Charlestown last time out. Some horses don't like the bull ring at Charlestown, so back on a mile oval, perhaps a Current Climate can improve as Gabby is on an island. Nobody else has Current Climate anywhere in the top 3, so that's a handicapper. I love it when it's me. It has that going on. So for Gabby, she's probably chomping at the bit to get a look at Current Climate there in race number 4. Back to the big picture as we hit the 4th, or where are we at now? We're up to race number 5, and this is my second long shot play of the day. Race number 5 is going to start the pick 6, as noted there on the big picture, and I've got a horse in here, number 1, Out of Nothing at All. Out of Nothing at All, if you're an Air Supply fan, I guess, was a hit way back when. I like this this filly in here. She's a 2-year-old. She's coming out of the Pocahontas Stakes last time out, where she was a long shot in there against Fun and Feisty, who, disappointed when Fun and Feisty came back and ran here in the Alcibiades Stakes on opening day, ran 8th, I believe. But Out of Nothing at All is for Cypress Creek Equine and Ricky Corville. They brought some horses here last year that were well meant. I tried to hop on them, and then they turned out to be good. And you just kind of know, like, connections when they come from out of town, Louisiana based. When they think they have something to compete on the big circuit, they'll come and take their shot. Out of Nothing at All, dominant winner at Evangeline first time out. And then they sent this horse to the Sorority Stakes at Monmouth and ran 3rd. They took a big shot in the Pocahontas. But before they head back and before they say we're heading back to Louisiana with a horse like this, they're going to take another shot for a big purse, $110,000 in this allowance purse. I think Ricky Corville and Cypress Creek Farm have Out of Nothing at All in a position where they might be able to pull off the upset in this race. Again, big price in the morning line. This horse had some foot sprinting at Evangeline in the debut with the rail draw and David Cohen, a good speed jockey aboard. I think they're going to send to the front in here at a mile and a 16th for these 2-year-olds stretching out. Which of the horses will handle the stretch out, we're not quite sure. And which of these horses really has any early speed, we're not sure. Friendly Persuasion, the 5, may go to the front. This is a horse who was second from the 12-hole in the Pocahontas Stakes before giving way. Certainly the 5, Friendly Persuasion, would merit some respect near the front end. I think Out of Nothing at All is going to be a big price, though, and a horse can be forwardly placed. Let's see what my cohorts think here in race number 5. Nobody else has Out of Nothing at All, so I'm on the island here. And again, that's what I like to see. If I'm finding something that others aren't, that's what I want to happen. Corville and Cypress Creek Equine, the horse they brought here last year as a 2-year-old, ended up winning at about $100 mutual in the was it the Risen Star Stakes where they pulled the big upset this spring. So when they have what they think are good, they're going to bring it to the big scene, and we'll take our shot here with this filly out of nothing at all. Play the Music for Mark Cassie is the one that we want to keep an eye on. This was a good rallying 7 furlong winner at Kentucky Downs in the career debut. We'll give this one a shot. Gabby's got the 3 on top. Closed caption, the top pick for Scott, for Tom, and for Kim. Closed caption's a horse I've got right on the cusp of my top 3. Trainer Kenny McPeak trains this one, a winner at Churchill last time, but it was a restricted race for horses that were sold at auction for less than $50,000. When you see that R restriction in the maiden races, and S is for state bred, but the restricted races for the 2-year-old maidens that you see are for horses who sold for less than a certain amount of money. In this particular case, horses in that race could have been sold for $50,000 or less to compete. So it's really a pretty big restriction when you think about it in the maiden rank. So closed caption for that reason, a nice victory in the debut, but I'm going to make them prove it to me against Open Company here. And these horses could have sold for any amount of money. Play the Music, the 3 horse, for instance, in race number 5, sold for $300,000, would not have been eligible to compete against closed caption in that career debut, or in that second career start for closed caption, where she was able to break her maiden. So race number 5 is going to wrap up the early pick 5. It also starts the pick 6 on the Sunday card. As we take a look at the big picture, you see we've got the left side of the column crossed off here, and 2 of our long shot plays through. So what are we going to do with the stakes races coming up next here on the show? We're going to talk about races 6 through 10. This includes the 3 stakes races, the Indian Summer in race 6, the Bourbon in race 8, and the Spinster in race 9. The picks for race number 6 as we start the late pick 5, and we get started with what looks to be a standout favorite. Love Reigns, top choice all the way across. All 5 public handicappers have this one on top, and why not? She was the winner of the Bolton Landing at Saratoga. She won her debut here on the turf over this course in the spring meet with the new Turf Sprint 2-year-old races this year. She's trained by Wesley Ward, who's won this race, I believe, 3 of the last 4 years, if memory serves me correctly. Wesley Ward's got 31 Turf Sprint wins here since the last 5 years. No other trainer's got more than 6. I know I repeated that stat a couple times, but it's so remarkable that when you talk Turf Sprints at Keeneland, especially with 2-year-olds, you just have to recognize it's Wesley Ward and everybody else. We saw Golden Powell win again today. So actually, I think that brings you to 32 sprint wins, Turf Sprint wins, because Golden Powell's win today in the Shakertown looking as good as ever. Ward's got 2 in this 6th race, the Indian Summer. He's got the 5 Love Reigns that we talked about. This horse went to the Queen Mary, ran very well over in Europe. When the other Ward horses really didn't fire over in Europe, Love Reigns ran as good or better than any of Ward's runners overseas. So she ran really well at Royal Ascot. She is the goods, and she's going to be tough to beat in here. The 7, No Nay Hudson, is the other Wesley Ward in here. Comes off a second-place finish in the Skidmore Stakes at Saratoga on the turf. Those 2 obviously very tough here. It could well be a Wesley Ward exacta 1-2. A lot of folks are thinking that could be. Tom Leach has got it just like that, the 5-7. I took the 11 Private Creed to split them up. This was the winner of the juvenile sprint at Kentucky Downs. Joel Rosario has more turf sprint wins than any other jockey at Keeneland over the last several years. And so you put Rosario up on a horse who's proven turf sprinter with some experience. I'll go with Private Creed to split the exacta up in there. And also Monsignor Coco is one that you might want to keep a little eye on for a price. I think we'll get a good number on that one. Monsignor Coco could be a horse for the exotics because you got a short price favorite here, but a field of 11. So you can get a price in terms of your tries and supers here, even if the favorite wins. But you're going to need a price underneath in order to do that. The Bolt Doro Colt Monsignor Coco comes north for Fausto Gutierrez. This one's coming up on the same day that we get Latruska for the barn. A little bit later in the Spinster. A lot of times they like to bring the good ones with their stars on the ship. So looking forward to seeing Monsignor Coco, perhaps one who can, I think he'll be let go at a decent price. And that's a colt who could probably spruce up your exotics in race number 6. That being the First of our 3 stakes races, 6th race on the card, the Indian Summer. We're back in the Maiden Company in race number 7 with the 2-year-olds, and the 7th race kicks off the late pick 4 on Saturday, final pick 4 of opening weekend. And again, when we talk about these 7 furlong maiden races, just like in race number 2, it's basically the same race. This one for the Colts, that one was for the Phillies. So a different division. It's not a split division, but it's the same kind of race and the same kind of trends you're looking for. And as we said with race number 2, these maiden special 7 furlong races, you're looking for horses from Churchill. You're looking for first-time starters. They seem to have dominated the scene in that regard. And the horses who ran from Churchill, quite frankly, in this race just don't appeal on paper. Raise Cane was beaten 18 lengths at 23-1 in the career debut. Didn't show much. Did get beat by Loggins in that race, and Loggins came back and ran a very good second today. Probably too good to lose, but did ended up running second behind Forte in the Breeders' Futurity, the grade 1 race for 2-year-olds. So, Raise Cane was well beaten in that one, but Loggins does look to be like one of the best 2-year-olds in America. So maybe you give Raise Cane a little shot off the Churchill form, but certainly the Churchill form for Macho Vio, the other horse coming in from CD, doesn't look that good. So if the Churchill form doesn't stand out to me, you turn and you look to the first-time starters. First-time starter in here that I like the most is McEnroe down on the rail. He's by Justify, and he's out of a dam who is half-sister to Escandarea. Escandarea, highly talented horse, would have been the favorite for the Kentucky Derby if not injured after winning the Wood Memorial, and a horse who was good early in the career. So by Justify, out of Escandarea. I don't know how long McEnroe will last in terms of career. Both of those had shortened careers, but both were brilliantly talented. So I look for McEnroe to be a good one right out of the box. First-time starter for Rudolph Brisset. Brisset had wins in 2018 and 2020 with first-time starters in the fall here at Keeneland, and he got nice prices with those 2 winners, 5-1 and 9-2, and they both came out sprinting. So McEnroe, the top pick in here for me. Perform for Shug McGahee. The 2 is one you've got to respect. Coming off a 4th place finish at Saratoga and adding blinkers. This is a colt by Good Magic, and of course, Good Magic, winner of the Bluegrass over this racetrack at Keeneland. Let's take a look at the other selectors' picks here in the 7th race. Tom and I are both on McEnroe and Perform. We've got it 1-2 the same way, but Kim Nelson's got Perform. But now you've got a couple long shots. The 3 and the 7 picked on top from Gabby and from Scott. A couple Saratoga runner to the 3. The 7's a first-time starter for Steve Asmussen, who's cost $485,000. Good bullet workout back mid-September at Churchill. Fashion King could come out running. It's good to see Tyler Gaffleone pick up the mount there for Asmussen, a strong jockey-trainer combo. And Asmussen's won with first-time starters at a higher rate than most. And in fact, he's had more in volume, more 2-year-old first-time starter winners at Keeneland in the fall than any other active trainer. So with the firster, Steve Asmussen has to be respected. And we'll see what he can do there in the 7th race with his rookie Fashion King. 8th race on the card as we roll through is the Castle and Key Bourbon Stakes. Grade 2 company here, a mile and a 16th. This is a prep race, race number 8 for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, which will be at Keeneland, now just 4 weeks away from Breeders' Cup as we speak. And this race will be 26 days out from the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, which comes up on the Friday of Breeders' Cup week. As for our picks in race number 8, you can see this is a wide open race. Gigante's got 2 picks on top, Tom and Kim Nelson, the 9. But now I've got the 3 Reckoning Force. Deer District, Scott Hazelton with the 4. And really good, the 10 for Gabby Gaudette. 4 different horses in the Bourbon Stakes picked on top by the 5 public handicappers. That tells you this is a pretty wide open race, and we're probably not looking at a big, heavy favorite in here. So a great betting race opportunity here in race number 8. It's also the second leg of the Keeneland Turf Pick 3. So you look at those Keeneland Turf Pick 3 races in green, the 6th, the 8th, and the 10th. The 6th to me looks like Love Reigns as a very short price. Now we get to the 8th, and we're a little more wide open, and I'm going to get to the 10th, and I'll just tell you now, I have 2 horses I really like in a 10th race. So as I'm strategizing this Keeneland Turf Pick 3, I've got 1 combination in the first leg. I like 2 in the last leg. So what can we do in this 8th race, and how do we want to craft our ticket? Because the Bourbon Stakes looks like it's competitive. It looks like there's a couple opportunities in here, and we haven't spent that much money. It's a $3 minimum, but we only have 2 combinations, 1 in the first leg, 2 in the last. So when you multiply them out, we're only up to $6 on our ticket. It only costs us $6 in the turf pick 3 for every horse that we add in the Bourbon Stakes on the $3 combination play. So I like Reckoning Force. I like Bapio, a horse who ran really well last time in winning the With Anticipation for a trainer, Mark Cassie, who has won 4 of the last 7 editions of the Bourbon Stakes. So Cassie aims for this race. He's got Bapio in here. I think you want to use the 6. I think Deer District and Really Good are the other horses, and they're the ones that were liked by the other public handicappers. So 3, 6, 4, and 10. I think it's a 4-deep situation in the Bourbon Stakes here. So if you're playing that Keeneland turf pick 3, single Love Reigns, 4 deep here, 2 in the last race, and they're going to be prices in the last race. So don't worry about, Love Reigns is too short of a price to play the Keeneland turf pick 3 on Sunday. If you've got some prices in legs B or C, there's nothing wrong with taking that space that you get with Love Reigns in the 6th race. So that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to take Love Reigns in the 6th, then I'm going to use 4 horses here in race number 8 in the Bourbon Stakes. So my 4 horses are going to be the 3, the 6, the 10, and the 4. 3, 6, 10, 4, the way I'm going to take on the Bourbon. This is a race where you want to look for horses from Kentucky Downs. They've won 5 of the last 9 editions of the Bourbon Stakes. And look for horses that are coming out of mile or longer preps and turf preps. Between those two, the last 18 years we've got in our database, or 16 years in our database, 14 of the 16 horses ran last time out as a turf prep who won this race. And then if you look at the distance, 15 of the 16 horses ran at a mile or longer last time. So you're looking for horses coming out of a turf prep at a mile or longer. That's the prototype to win the Bourbon Stakes. And horses from Kentucky Downs have run really well. So that's why I like Reckoning Force quite a bit. I like Bapio. Bapio's from Saratoga, not from Kentucky Downs, and therefore that makes my top pick for me, leaning towards the trends a bit on Reckoning Force. Reckoning Force will show up here for trainer Brendan Walsh, previously trained by Joseph O'Brien, who had this horse overseas and brought him to run in New York a couple times. Last out winner of the Kentucky Downs Juvenile at 4-1, and I think we'll get a fair price back on this one again with Brendan Walsh, the trainer. So for me in the Bourbon Stakes, again, we'll go 4 deep with 3, 4, 6, and 10 numerically down the line. 9th race on the card is the Spinster Stakes. The Juddmonte Spinster, $600,000, a mile and an eighth. And like I mentioned at the top of the program, there are other races that have larger purses at Keeneland, but I don't know if there's any that has more prestige and has had more national impact and influence than the Juddmonte Spinster Stakes. And we've got 2 tremendous mares in this edition. Only a field of 5. It may not be a great intra-race betting race, but to get along for your multi-race bets, your pick 4s, 5s, 6s, making a decision between these 2 superstar mares, Malathaat and the defending Spinster champ, Latruska, is what it's all about. Let's go back and take a look at the Personal Ensign Stakes at Saratoga when these 2 last matched up earlier in the summer.
8 and 1/5 seconds and leads by 2 lengths. Search Results remains in second, and Malathaat is third, and now the field is going around the far turn. It is Latruska, the one to catch. She leads by 2. Search Results is second by a length and a half. Malathaat runs in third, a break of 4. 2 Crazy Beautiful, and Clariere is still well behind as the field hits the top of the stretch. 3/4 in 1:11 and 3. Latruska challenged here on the outside by Search Results. Search Results and Latruska. Search Results with a narrow lead. Latruska, and on the outside here is Malathaat as they come down for the 16th pole. It is Search Results challenged here by Malathaat on the outside. Malathaat grabs the lead in deep stretch, and Malathaat has won the Personal Ensign Stakes. Search Results was second.
Couple points out of that Personal Ensign Stakes. Malathaat's never going to wow you watching on video. She just grinds and fights and grinds and fights. She doesn't have that turn of foot, that electricity that makes you go, wow, she's great. But then you look at what she's done, her accomplishments, the winner of the Ashland here, the winner of the Double Dog Dare here. Of course, she's a Kentucky Oaks winner. You saw her win the Personal Ensign there at Saratoga in Grade 1 company. Just a fabulous resume, $2.3 million earned. And she just keeps coming at you. She is just a tough mare. Now, Latruska in that race, the other takeaway is she got her way. She got 3/4 of a mile in 1:11.74, 1:11 and almost 4/5. The Latruska of old, who was running horses into the ground, including in last year's Spinster Stakes, should have run off and won that race in the personal ensign with authority. Instead, she not only got beat, she ended up third. Search results ran by her after pressing the pace as well. So I'm a little concerned that Latruska, the defending champ, is just off of her best form. Now, this is the right race for her. You bring her back where she's the defending champ. I think she'll run well, but I think Malathaat will run her down. Now, if you're looking for any alternatives to those two, we've got one for you in here who's going to play a factor in the pace probably. Her name is Played Hard, and she's trained by Phil Bauer. Earlier this week, Tom Leach, the voice of the Wildcats, caught up with Phil Bauer to talk about this filly and the Spinster.
Played Hard goes for the Phil Bauer stable in the Grade 1 Spinster. Tell me about her last race.
Jess, I think kind of the race we've all been waiting for a few years from her. Always showed a bunch of ability, and ever since we kind of put her around 2 turns, she's just been a different horse. And 3-year-old, we had the small cup blinkers on her to try and kind of harness, keep her focused, but I think it kind of started to backfire us with her early tenacity in races. So we took them off for a 4-year-old campaign, and she seemed to kind of relax for us, and it's kind of paying off with her efforts. She's running her best numbers, and we were back and forth about the Spinster 3 weeks, but it seemed like visually, there was more in the tank there, and just timing, there wasn't a lot left. So you either try the Spinster, swing at the Breeders' Cup, or sit on her here till the Fall City, and we think she deserves a shot Sunday.
When you tried her last year in the Alabama, tried her in Grade 1 company, so obviously you had a high opinion of her. How is she better now?
I think she's easier on herself during the course of the race. She still has a tremendous amount of tactical speed, always seems to create her race from the break, and it's beneficial. But now she's letting horses kind of go in front of her, and she's willing to rate like she did in the Locust Grove. I think that was a big move on Joelle's part to kind of flip the trip. She was taking pressure going into the backside, and he eased her back, and she cooperated, and then kind of angled her out and sat on the pace. And I think it's done a lot for her, and it's shown in her kind of fires that she's running. And even the race at Saratoga, she kind of laid off the early leaders and then had to grind it out. But I think she's still trying to kind of figure things out mentally, and she seems like it's coming together.
Is she any better at 1 1/8 than 1 16, or interchangeable?
I think she can, even going back to the Alabama distances, 1 1/4. The way she's running now, I don't think there's any distance limitations.
So thanks to Tom Leach for that, and for Phil Bauer for his time. And if you want more interviews from Tom Leach from the connections of horses that are running in the big races at Keeneland, be sure to check out the YouTube page. Also follow on Twitter at Keeneland Racing and at Bet Keeneland. A lot of those same interviews are shown across those social media platforms. But certainly the YouTube page has got a nice library every week of contender interviews, pre-race interviews from Tom Leach from Top Contenders. Now let's take a look at the other handicappers in the selectors box on their Spinster thoughts here. As we look across the board in race number 10, it's Malathaat, Latruska for Gabby Gaudet. Everybody else is on Malathaat. It's a 1-2 in the exacta every way around. So look, there's not going to be a big opportunity in here to play an exacta. You're looking at multi-race wagers when it comes to the Spinster Stakes, or you sit this one out and double up somewhere else with the money you saved in your bankroll. But for me, the decision is multi-race wagers. What do you do with these two big contenders? I think you single here. I think Malathaat's strength, the head-to-head matchup last time, even when Latruska got it her way, I don't think you want to be sucked into, well, this happened last year, the horse for course angle with Latruska. While that could be a proponent in your decision-making, don't forget, Malathaat's won 2 major stakes races here, the Double Dog Dare and also the Ashland. So she also is a horse for course, and I think she's just in better form now. And really the thing that cinches it, 12 hours ago, I might have told you to look at both of these horses. But have you seen the way the Todd Pletcher horses ran today? I mean, his horses are firing. He won Grade 1s back-to-back. He won the Annapolis, the 3-year-old winning the Grade 1 Coolmore Turf Mile today. That coming right on the heels of Forte running just a knocker of a race head-to-head against Loggins in the Grade 1 Breeders' Futurity. So the Pletchers are singing right now. He's got Malathot. She's 2 for 2 over the track. And when we talk about gambling here, this is the whole thing. It's not rooting, it's gambling. If you're rooting and you want to root for Latruska, by all means do so. But if you're gambling here and you're looking at the late part of this card where we've got the stakes races, the pick 5, the pick 4s, you're singling in here. You do not want to spend twice the amount of money as your ticket would cost by going 2 deep. And that's what adding a horse to a single does. When you go from a single to 2 deep, it doubles the cost of your ticket literally in one shot. I do not think Latruska's chances of beating Malathot in this race justify doubling the cost of your ticket. There are times to go 2 deep in races. I agree with that. This just isn't one of them. I think Malathot's the single. I think that's the way you use number 9. Let's go to the 10th and final, and we'll go back to the big board for this one. It's the last leg of the Keeneland Turf Pick 3. We talked about the 2 stakes races, the Indian Summer and the Bourbon were the first 2. We were 1 by 4 in the first 2 legs, we think, in the Keeneland Turf Pick 3, perhaps. We're using 4 in the middle leg, and I told you there are 2 horses that I like in the finale. Race number 10 is a turf marathon at 1.5 miles on the grass. And my 2 runners in here are the 4 Point by Me and the 3 Cibolian. And there's not a lot of love for them across the board. So I think we're going to get some prices on these 2. And I'll tell you the reason. It's strictly a pedigree play. Their form doesn't look bad by any stretch either. But they are both grandsons of Dynaformer. And Dynaformer had such an impact here on the 1.5 mile turf races. You know, he's past long gone now. And you're seeing second generation Dynaformers now. But when he was in the sire line, it was just a straight bet for me in a Keeneland Turf Marathon. If there was a horse by Dynaformer, you just went to the window. And I'm saying that as a grandson of Dynaformer, maybe it doesn't play quite as strong. But Cibolian's run over this course. Point by Me's run over this course. And while their records don't look that great, they weren't the best situations. They weren't beaten that far. Now they get to the 1.5 miles. They were beaten here in mile and 1/16 races, that being Point by Me. And then if you look at the 1.5 mile races for Cibolian, the 2 defeats came by a combined length and a half in 2 losses. So I know Cibolian can get the 1.5 miles over this turf course, and I think Point by Me will get the 1.5 miles with that pedigree. I think he was running too short in the previous races. So we're going to get some prices there. You get Florent Giroux on the 3 Cibolian. You get Luis Saez on the 4 Point by Me. 3-turn race, so they'll be able to save a little ground in post 3 and 4. You get excellent jockeys, aggressive jockeys who are going to get their horses up into the race. I don't think we're going to see these horses lagging in the back. You get blinkers on Cibolian. So I love this. This is Dynaformer horses who I think are going to get put in the race. They're going to relish the 1.16 or the 1.5 miles. And I think we're going to get a price. So for me, it's these 2 horses, and I'm trying to figure out how to gamble on them. I respect Mud Pie quite a bit in here. Really good form at Keeneland, a horse who's usually knocking in it but doesn't win as often. 8 second and third place finishes for Mud Pie. So Mud Pie is an underneath horse. Now, if you're gambling on this race, I could say take the 4-8 box, or not 4 with the 8 and 3 with the 8. Put the 8 second in between the 2 of them. Don't box. Go for the 4 and the 3 are clearly the 2 horses I need to win this race, but they may not run 1-2. One may fire and handle it, and the angle is correct, and the other may not. So Mud Pie is the most logical horse to run second. So I'm playing a 4-3 exacta box. I'm betting the 4 and the 3 straight up. I'm using those 2 deep in all the multi-race wagers. A daily double, Malathot to those 2. A pick 4 with McEnroe and Perform and those horses all the way down. The single of Love Reigns in the pick 5. The late pick 5 looks better than the pick 4 to me because, again, I think Love Reigns is a free space just like we have in the opener. So the late pick 4 is not as attractive because the pick 5, I think we get an easy winner in the first leg of it. So we take the pick 5 on race 6. And, again, we end with these 2. But if you're playing intra-race, use Mud Pie as the horse to split the 3 or the 4. And that's the way I will attack the 10th and final as my final top play, key play of the day, number 3. So we got a couple long shots in races 3 and 5. We've got a pedigree play at some prices in race number 10 to wrap things up. Hopefully that's a strong finish to opening week. And look, I've not had a ton of success here. We had Wonder Wheel And then we had a couple stakes winners. We did have In Italian correct. We thought that they would hand the lead to In Italian today, and she would take them wire to wire in the First Lady, and she did so with Regal Glory rallying for second, but they conceded the lead to her. So we've been right a couple times this weekend, but it hasn't been great handicapping right off the block. But hey, it's been tough. There's a lot of long shots opening day, $20,000 pick 5 on Saturday. So it's been tough for everybody. Hopefully we pick up the pace here a little bit with a few more winners on Sunday, but I've got some horses I really like. We've got some prices to take some shots at, and I love that last race with a couple of Dyna former grandsons going the 1.5 miles on the grass. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Keeneland Look Ahead. We'll take a couple days off, and we'll be back with you on Tuesday night to do it all again. The Tuesday night show at 8:30 Eastern. We'll preview the first Wednesday, which kicks off our 5-day racing weeks. 5-day racing week coming up over the next 2 weeks at Keeneland after we get through False Star Sunday featuring the Spinster Stakes. Good luck tomorrow, and we'll talk to you Tuesday night.